Kingy, why don't you kick us off with your Friday first thoughts?
Well, my first thought when I looked at the teams this morning, can I just get to a team?
Yep.
Isaac Rankin coming back into the Crows.
Mm-hmm.
How many goals is Isaac Rankin worth to your team? Not just what he kicks, but what he sets up and all those creates mismatches and the domino effect of the player that he takes rather than the next best player. What's he worth, Cornsey?
Do we think 5?
Well, I was probably not as strong as 5.
Well, he's going to kick 3 himself. I would think he's going to set up a couple of others, wouldn't he?
Well, I'm happy with 5. I was thinking 3 or 4 max, but 5's, I think you're right. So it's a bad time to play the Adelaide Crows when he's coming back in. So it's more about when you play teams rather than who you play. But my first thought for Friday was just looking at the Brisbane lineup for tonight, and I just went through my mind, how many opportunities are you going to get to win a flag with the premiership and win a premiership with this team if you're Dane Zorko? He'll be 35 in February next year. 35. Like, he's had a fantastic career.
That's getting up there.
This is it, isn't it?
That's it.
So he's played forward since he come back into the lineup. He's hardly hit the scoreboard. So he's played 40% midfield, 60% forward, and hasn't really set the world on fire since he. So I think tonight, first thoughts for me, it's a big night for Dane Zorko to just separate this game.
Love that. 1300 736 736. What's your first thoughts, Johnny? You also want to speak about the Lions. G'day, John.
Johnny's not there.
We'll get back to Johnny shortly. My Friday first thoughts are, this situation out west with Adam Simpson is fascinating to me. If he's not the guy for them, what are they doing? Like, it's all this talk, and it's a horrible position for any coach to be in when you're getting reports that the board is meeting considering your future and he's still trying to coach the team this week. And I want to find out what is next for the West Coast Eagles. Before that, though, Adam fronted up to the media, as he has done all year, and spoke with 6PR with Adam Papalia last night.
No, I haven't asked the board, but I've spoken to a few people at the club to get some direction. So that's true, but it's not. I'm not stamping my feet. It's just more, when we do all these future planning, it's obviously you want to be there if you're recruiting people and employing staff. So that clarity is important. I think we've planned something at the end of the season. So getting a bit of clarity around that would be nice. But at the same time, I fully respect the board, and they've always been pretty stoic and run by an agenda that they set, and I respect that. So we'll find out in due course, and we'll get some clarity as we go.
Yeah, just not sure that's good enough from the board of the West Coast Eagles. Clearly, you're trying to recruit players. You're trying to go to the draft. It's never been a more important time for the footy club. You need to know who the coach is going to be. And if they have made the decision that it is not him, and we're all already hearing through Mark Duffield that they're sounding out Don Pike and Dean Cox while he's trying to coach this weekend and plan for the future. They have said he's the coach to rebuild this club going forward. If he's not, and as soon as you've made the decision that he's not, tell him. And I think that's the right thing to do to move on. As I've said, I think the place needs energy. It needs a circuit breaker. It just has to happen. Adam's going to be fine. He's going to get a couple of $1 million and he'll be fine. But if you've made the call, surely the least you can do is tell him, more so than let him coach the team this week with that hanging over his head.
No, he's paid to do a job.
You think?
And your contract and your obligation is to perform the role. So perform the role, regardless of what's going on around the edges. Just do your job.
Even when you know,
that's the contract, though, isn't it? He's got to perform his end of the bargain.
How can you perform at your best when you've got the board running around potentially speaking to coaching candidates to coach next year?
This is part of the cycle, though, isn't it? Isn't this what happens? Isn't this why it gets ugly at the end? There's never an amicable parting of company like this.
And if it is the end, wouldn't it be best to celebrate the end for him more so than wait until the end of round 24? I don't know. It feels like a real changing of the guard with the Eagles. So Nick Nat, Shuey, and if Adam Simpson go, when's their last game at home?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Saturday night against the.
Wouldn't
Crows.
that be the right way to?
Well, it may be. They may announce something next week. They may do that.
Far out.
This is why. So I think the Coaches Association should be looking at this and saying this is exactly why we need to get rid of this clause where you can just pay as a 3-month tenure.
That's dumb.
And That has to go. This is why this is so challenging for the West Coast, because they made a commitment and they can't wriggle their way. If he was on that standard contract of coaches, he'd gone. He'd gone months ago.
Yep.
So because of the binding contract, it puts them in a situation where they've got to honour what they've committed to. Now,
and it makes them more responsible when you're signing coaches. So you might see more 2-year contracts like we've seen with, rather than 5-year deals for Ross Lyon and Brad Scott and Damien Hardwick. You'd be much more considered in the offers that you're giving your coaches if you were forced to do this and pay out $2 million.
I think it has to change. I think we have to go back to this so it holds clubs accountable, and you're more likely to stick with your guy. Like I don't. They've got to find out what's in waiting. They have to find out as a footy club. They'd be derelict in their duties not to know what's out there.
Do you have a thought on? I know you've looked a little bit. I want to ask you about the tenures of coaches and winning premierships. I want to ask you a little bit about that in the agenda. Do you have a thought on who's the right person for this club now? That they've made the decision. Clearly, that we all know it is going one way. Dean Cox, how would you know? Is Don Pike willing to go through 5-6 years of absolute pain with what he's done?
If you were Dean Cox, would you take the job?
Yeah.
I look at it and I think, I keep saying the rebuild coaches don't survive. Very few of them do. The percentages are low. People will send through, this bloke did, this bloke did. Yeah. And you're all correct. But the percentages are low and it's the hardest of tasks. The West Coast are at the very start of a rebuild. Why would Dean Cox want to take this role?
Because there's not many jobs that come up. And we always think, why would you take that job? But there's just not many. Like, when would he know when the next opportunity is going to come? Like, Scotty Burns has gone for 1 million jobs, well, not 1 million, 5 or 6 jobs and not been successful. So when's that? Has that passed it now? Has he been tainted with that guy as being the second in charge more so than the one? So if you get the opportunity, you go for it and back yourself in.
What's the perfect result? What's the perfect result for the Eagles?
Don't know. I don't know. And it can't just be. You can't just look at the coach. You have to look at everything, as we've said. Now the fitness guy is gone. I don't know what they're going to do in the recruiting space. The CEO appears on his way out, so you would want to walk in knowing that you have a stable football department around you. That would be the first.
You can't have that though, can you?
Well,
you can't. I mean,
you'd want to bring. But you'd want to bring somebody.
Well,
you'd want. No, he can't. But if the new coach is coming in, you'd want to make certain that you've got some people around you that you can trust. And look, Sam Mitchell might be an excellent person to ask that this morning, because it was pretty unstable when he took over, and the list changes that they made. But quickly, he's been able to get the place going in the right direction. So he may be a good one to ask that. Johnny's with us now in Griffith in New South Wales, listening on the SEN app. Johnny, I'm sure. What was your first thoughts this morning?
Yeah, my first thought, fellas, is I hope the Brisbane Lions actually hasn't been checking out the Collingwood team over yesterday, because I feel they've got a tendency to take the foot off the pedal when they go into a big game if they think they've got a good chance of winning. I want to be Owen and think they're playing the Collingwood that can knock them over, and don't take it easy. Go in hard. That's my concern.
Yeah, well, they've got a really good record from what I saw against I think they won the last 5 against Collingwood, and their record at Marvel is actually pretty good. So it is a good time to get them. I don't think they'll be taking them easy. It is Collingwood, and there is a top 2 position on the line.
It should be the last time they come to Melbourne prior to September 30.
Yep, agreed.
It should be.
Yep, I've got that in the gun.
I'm looking forward to that.
Had
some success in the gun. Oof,
has it?
You took credit. You took personal credit for turning Jeremy Cameron around last week. I was horrified when I went to Twitter.
I just thought he was listening. He must have been listening.
I was horrified.
This is the impact that in the gun can have. Jeremy Cameron must have been listening, because I put him in the gun last week, and he was listening as he was waking up on the farm early in Friday morning and went back with 7 goals. But anyway, he was in the gun last week, Jeremy Cameron. I put him in there for his 12 goals in his previous 9 games. I said he's due for a big one, and bang, he kicked 7 goals for on Friday night. So whoever is in the gun may respond in a big way.
Take credit
I wasn't
for it,
taking credit
you
for
did
it,
last
Kingy.
week. I saw it.
I
it was
just
embarrassing.
said,
I had a little shiver went down the spine.
He was watching.
My God, he's
listening.
credit for this.
He was listening or watching us on YouTube for Fireball Friday, and he responded in a big way. Who's in the gun?
In the gun this week for me, is a man who's played 378 games, Scotty Pendlebury. He's still getting his touches. He's still doing what he's probably asked to do. He's probably playing his role I'm really critical of what's happening at centre bounces with Collingwood because I think that's where they're giving so much advantage to the opposition in recent weeks. I look at Scotty, and he's now, this season, he's winning 33% of his ball in a contest. That's not him. I picture this guy being the brute around clearances and around contest. He's in it all centre bounces. He averages 4 clearances a game this year, so it's sort of muddling sort of numbers. 6 score involvements, 3.5 inside 50s a game. The numbers are okay, but tonight there's no De Goey, there's clearly no Dacos. It's time for him to just wind it back and go back to that wrecking ball at clearances that we know he is.
Yep.
And I know that the speed may not be there, and Bucks give me a clip with you on Monday. I showed some vision on First Crack last week. There are about 6 or 7 edits of where he's just allowing the opposition to go first, and he can't recover. His speed's no longer there. So if your speed's no longer there, get proactive and get after the footy. So for me, they need a performance tonight. And they don't just need it tonight. They need Scott Pendlebury to take control again for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Big games. The big games in September to lead the way. And I think he can do that, but tonight he's in the gun.
That's how it's done. That's why you're the best in the business. Scott Pendlebury in the gun. For me, short and sharp. Brisbane may be 1 win away from a grand final, and that 1 win may be tonight. If you win tonight, guaranteed top 2, you don't lose at the Gabba, 2 finals at home. See you on the last Saturday in September. That's how important this game is tonight. Just going. They play in spurts, I think, the Lions, and they've been lucky to get over the line against Fremantle. Adelaide came home hard last week, and perhaps if Adelaide had their full complement, particularly behind the ball, Brisbane wouldn't have won that. We've spoken about their record at the MCG. I know this game's not there, but come to Melbourne in a big game, in a big stage, get a win against a good opposition, and then perhaps we'll see you on grand final day in September. That's how important tonight is. So Brisbane, you are in the gun. There is absolutely no excuses for you tonight. But it's time now for the Friday agenda, thanks to Signet. Power every moment with a Signet Power Bank. Kingy, I think we're both fascinated by the Western Bulldogs, so why don't you kick us off with your first item on the agenda?
Yeah, I'm just fascinated by. We all think they'll probably make the 8. We've all done our predictors and probably got them finishing 7th or 8th if they can. They've probably got to obviously just win 1 game really to qualify. But I'm just assessing teams and the likely expectations at the start of the season and what the reality is at the end of the season. So at the end of round 16, we're on crunch time here and we had to meet Baines on. This is what he said about their list. So you think you've got a top 4 list right now is the bottom line?
Yeah, we do. They haven't all played consistently.
So this is what we are talking about. You've got a team and household names you can build around. Limping into the finals or to 7th or 8th spot, can they realistically make a charge? So I'm looking at their lineup, Cornsey, and I'm sort of thinking, are they getting more dangerous by the week or less dangerous by the week? Obviously, Libba goes out this week with concussion, and they'll get the job done against the Eagles, you'd expect. But they go to Geelong next week. It's almost like they could get themselves going. Where do you sit with them? Because I'm at a loss as to whether to work out whether they're going to be successful in the next 2 to 3 years or not.
No, firstly that was the right answer from Amit Baines, and I wasn't aware of that. I'm glad you asked the question, and that was the right response. Absolutely, they've got a top 4 list. They may have a better than a top 4 list, but the inconsistencies of what they deliver, I've best been on record for probably the last 2 seasons. There's so many issues with the team. They concede consecutive goals so often. Only really West Coast and North concede more consecutive goals than them. They can't defend the ball from their back half. The selection issues that they have and some of the choices they make are bizarre. They don't get the maximum benefit from a midfield that often dominates, so they can't score from that. They don't beat top 8 teams, and they're inconsistent. So to me that is coaching. I said at the time I wouldn't have extended Luke Beveridge's contract. For as good as a coach he's been, they're going to hang a statue of him up at the Whitten Oval. I get all that, and rightly so. But 2016 was a long time ago, and you have to ask, why are they not getting the most out of this? I think it's as good a list as there is in the game. Now, some would argue that, but clearly the club sees it in that way. So It is a coaching thing. They go and get Brendan Lade, who's an excellent assistant coach, been around for a long time, and they stick him on the bench on game day. Why is Lady? I'm looking at Lady's got a headset on the bench talking to players. I'm like, if you really rated Brendan Lade, and I haven't spoken to anyone about this, but my overall observation is he's in the box helping call the shots. He's sitting on the interchange. This is Lady. He's been in footy forever, a future head coach, and he's sitting on the interchange bench dealing with players as they come off frustrated. So, I don't know, the turnover of assistant coaches, no team has me more perplexed than
They
the
have
Western
to turn them
Bulldogs.
over this year, don't they? I mean, they
Well,
got
it's either you turn
picked
over the
apart.
coach or you turn over everyone around him.
Well, they got picked apart with losing Stephen King and Ash Hansen. I think they were two big losses. From
And
their
now Rowan
coaching
Smith's
team.
going as well.
And now Rowan's on the way out. It's a fascination which we'll track heavily over the next couple of weeks. What do you got?
Oh, I just wanted to explore your. We might have to hold this over for the next little bit, but to give you some time to think about it, I just want to explore the 6-year coaching theory that you've got about winning a premiership early in your coaching tenure and
Yeah.
what that means for some of the names like a Nix or a Voss or a Longmuir and where that sits, or a Mitchell, just in the context of how quickly they have to get a move on.
15 of we've had 18 premiership coaches since we become the AFL in 1990, and 15 of them won a flag in the first 5 years.
So I wanna-
some go back prior to that. So Malthouse and Sheedy and those guys go back. So bottom line is there's not many that have won it after their 5th year.
So I've got one name that I want to ask you about. We'll do that next. Just your thoughts on the pressure then with your theory around the coaches. And it's come to bear with Port Adelaide's extension of Ken Hinkley, and that was the reason it was put on the agenda. But Chris Fagan's into his 7th. Kingy
Got to win it.
has to win it.
Got to win it. So
What about make it? What about make it to the grand final?
Well, you can make it if you want, but the premiership coach list: Thompson 8th year, Hardwick 8th year, Jocko Williams in his 6th. In their 5th years, Worsfold, Goodwin, Simpson, originally Lee Matthews. 1 to 4 years, Beveridge, Clarkson, Longmire, Chris Scott, Paul Roos, Blighty in his 2nd stint, going to obviously the Crows in his 1st year, Pagan 4th year. So the history is there. This is why I'm not afraid of change at the top. I think this is the Hinkley discussion we have. I'd much rather Hinkley go somewhere else and coach, but we're just not used to that. We can't handle that as an AFL following. We're not used to seeing the magnets in the coaching sense spin around. So we all know we've got to re-sign Ken. We've got to hang on to him. This is bad for the footy club if we have to move on the coach.
Yeah, or there's the counter view. The stability is there. Like the player, third top 4 finish in 4 years.
No one celebrates top 4s. mate.
I understand, but you got to be top 4 to give yourself a shot, and they're in the hunt. And I'd much rather be in the hunt than not. So there's the counter view.
But this is so. Take Ken out of it for a sec, right? Remove his name. The fresh voice coming in, I think, has an impact.
Yeah, it does. But then
I
you could
really
look
do.
at Brad Scott, who was there for 10 years at North, and how's it been since Brad? So just saying, let's change doesn't mean success. Do you know what I mean? Like, what would you rather, Brad Scott there and what he delivered at North, or what's happened since?
But it had been there 10 years.
Yeah, but how's it gone since? I mean,
Yeah, no, I understand the counter argument. Look, yeah, you make a valid point there, but I do know that I think we are uncomfortable with seeing people have fresh opportunity. I mean, is it time for Luke Beveridge to go somewhere else? What if you swapped Beveridge and Longmire right now? Would that
help?
What would you get out of both parties?
and I think that's worthwhile. I think that's a worthwhile discussion, and that's why some would say what Damien Hardwick has done is the right thing and will benefit the footy club. If you've got a thought on that, I'm not sure there's a right or wrong answer. King, you want to just quickly put the Pies on the agenda tonight?
Because we'll do this on Monday morning. What if the Pies win tonight? What if they win without DeGoey and Dacos and Moore?
Against a good
and
team.
Maynard just has an all-time night, and Pendlebury winds the clock back at clearances and goes crazy, and they get hold of their key backs. What will we be saying? Will we be talking about Collingwood, or will we be talking about Brisbane? I'm so fascinated by tonight. There's only really about 4 games in the next 2 weeks that mean so much, and tonight's one of them.
Yep. I can't believe they're not going to start favourites, which you wouldn't have predicted. I understand the reasons behind that, but let us know your thoughts on that. That was the agenda. I just wanted to quickly just touch on the Cats as well. maybe it was more for in the gun, but just looking at their back six, a really disappointing back six. And you think of the powerhouse that they were last year and how quickly you start to change perspective on that. And then I'm looking at the names in the back six going, I don't know. Clearly the midfield is an issue, but perhaps there's some areas of their back six that need to be addressed. Radaglia is going to move. Not sure about Colajazzi, not sure about Buse. And if Tom Stewart's playing more midfield time, then it's DeConing or bust. Just wanted to put that on there.
Do they win?
Well,
They win this week?
Yes. Yes, they win. They win this week. But I've been hard on the Saints all year. I've given them no love. I've given them no respect. So I wouldn't be surprised if they made me look silly.